Hi there. So you're doing some YouTube, maybe some cinematography, and you want to get a good tripod head so that you can get smooth shots. But you don't want to spend a lot of money. Well, I found this particular head here. This is the K&F Concepts FH03 tripod head. It is a fluid head and it does have some counterbalance. Now it doesn't have adjustable counterbalance, but I'm going to show you what it can do. There's no videos on this tripod head other than the one that came out from K&F themselves and a few others that are very, very vague. So I'm going to explain why I like this particular head and why it might just be the perfect head for you if you're doing YouTubing. So if this has got your curiosity piqued, keep watching because you're watching Blue Collar Guy. Okay, so today we're talking about this tripod head. This is the FH03. They have different models, but I kind of like this one. The price was about $62. I bought this with my own money. K&F Concepts has sent me things for review, but I also buy a lot of their products with my own money. That's why I collaborate with them, because I actually like their products. I find that their products are a good bang for your buck. And I like this particular fluid head. Are there fluid heads that have more features than this? Absolutely, but you might not need those unless you have very, very heavy cameras. So most YouTubers are using a camera that I'm looking into right now. This is the Sony ZV-E10. This is the first generation camera. It is an 8-bit camera. It has very good picture quality. It can shoot in 4K. It is actually one of the most popular cameras that Sony sold for YouTube content creation. It is a very good camera. I've been using it. It has some downsides. It can overheat, that sort of thing. If you're curious on that, I have a video on it. I talk about the good, the bad, the ugly of this camera. But I'm not going to get into the camera. I'm going to get into this head. And I'm going to demonstrate how this head might just suit you. So if you're using a camcorder like this one here, this is a Panasonic WXF1, or maybe you're using a bridge camera. I have one of those over here, so let me just grab that. So this would be a bridge camera, and a bridge camera has a nice zoom. This particular one has a 1-inch sensor, so it can actually perform very similar to a professional camcorder with a 1-inch sensor, and that's why I like it. It was a good bang for the buck. I also got this remote control for it. This remote control can control the recording and the zoom feature, which I can hook up to the handle of this fluid head, and now I've got control over my camera while I'm moving my camera around. You see where I'm going with this? So how can I even make this fluid head better? Well, I've got an idea for that too, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the video. But I've got some ideas on this. I like to take things and kind of make my own versions of them. So if you're new to Blue Collar Guy, I like to talk about things that other people don't talk about. I know that you've already seen a lot of videos on a lot of things because I watch the same videos, so you really don't want to see another regurgitated information on the same thing, on the same product over and over and over again. That's why I wanted to talk about this particular fluid head. There's hardly anything on this. I couldn't believe it. So it's a decent fluid head. I'm going to hook this up to a tripod and I'm going to show you what it can do. Now, one other thing too is I use these little Ulanzi mounts, and no, Ulanzi did not send these to me for free. I paid for these with my own money. I do think they're expensive, but as you can see, this particular one here, and it's hard to get it in the right light because it's dark. See that little line? It's Arca Swiss, so I can actually put it in here and I can tighten this down. And the only disadvantage of that is that if you loosen this, it'll slide right off and you could lose your camera if your camera's in a tilted position. So that's the advantage of this plate here, because it's got these little stopper screws. So if you're worried about that, get the other type of Ulanzi mount, and then you can just put this on there like so, and I'll show you that even if it's loose, it'll stop on there. So if that worries you, just do this. And the reason why I have this connector is because I like to pop my cameras on and off very, very quickly, and it's a little awkward, but as you can see, I can pop this camera on and off. I can pop this one off. I could take, let's say my DJI Osmo Pocket 3, I could slap that on there. I can slap an action camera on there. I can do all kinds of interchangeable things from one type of camera to another type of camera. So that is the advantage of having that type of claw mount. And you can also flick a little switch and you can lock it. It'll lock out, which is kind of nice. So anyways, we're going to talk a little bit about different types of heads too, because this is a fluid head and this one here is a ball head. This one here came on my 1K&F concept tripod. Like I said, I buy a lot of their stuff already. They have sent me stuff, but I do buy a lot of their stuff. I bought this too. This is called a geared head. And we're going to talk about this and how you might want to work with this in conjunction with the other one, because it'll give you a little bit more control. So I've got to switch to the other camera, the Pocket 3 here. And now we're on the Pocket 3. And I'm going to grab one of my tripods. So I'm going to grab this one. This one here has got some thicker legs on it here. And I'm going to just take off the strap, because we don't need that. And of course we have to set it up. And that's why I'm using that. And then I'm going to loosen up the legs. And we're going to move back a little bit here. So it's going to be a bit awkward because I'm kind of setting this up in a very tiny studio. And okay. I got to figure out how we're going to lower this down so that you can see it very, very well. Okay, so normally I would take this, and I have a ball head here. So this is another ball head. Okay, and I would take this, I would thread this on here like so. Okay, these come with the tripods. Okay, and then you can take your fluid head. I've got to lower it down a little bit more, and we're going to put this in here like so. And bear with me, we're going someplace with this. Okay, and as you can see, and we're going to lower it a little bit more. All right, so now we have a pan and tilt. Now I want to show you something. You see this little flex that it bounces back? That's called counterbalance. Now, I know that you've been watching other videos and they've been talking about counterbalance, and that's what that is it just helps your camera from dropping down the minute you let go of the handle, and that can be very jarring to the camera. It can damage the camera. This particular head here is rated for 5 kilograms, so it's about 11 pounds, which is probably more than adequate for like Sony's ZV-E10, even with a monitor on it or a wireless microphone mount or something of that nature. So, you know, I'm going to demonstrate with a camcorder because guess what? They're still popular. They're still being used. You know why? Because they're geared for video. So here's a camcorder. I'm going to pan it all the way down. You're going to see it kind of bounce back a little bit. Now, the nice thing about the adjustable counterbalance, so I'm just going to go back over here a little bit. The nice thing about adjustable counterbalance is that you can set it so that as you point it, it stays exactly there. It does not bounce back. This one only bounces back when you get to the bottom part, okay? Because it doesn't have adjustable counterbalance. But it's not really a deal breaker. You know, when you're panning down, you're just going to have to keep your finger there, and it's not a lot of pressure. And then if I go all the way up, it's going to stay all the way up. So the balance on this is actually pretty close to what you would actually want it set at. See, it's drifting a little bit. So it's not that bad. And you can even adjust your counterbalance a bit. So let's say it's springing back too far. So I can put the weight more towards the end, and then it's not going to bounce back as hard or as fast. And then at the back, see, it's just more or less staying put where it is. So when I have it on the level, it's pretty much just staying wherever I point it, it's just staying, okay? So that's why this particular fluid head appealed to me. I don't have to have an expensive fluid head with all those adjustments, because they're mainly set up for very heavy cameras like a Sony FX6 or maybe a Red camera. These are very expensive cameras. And if your camera is expensive, then you can invest in a more expensive fluid head. But if you're just doing YouTube work, or you're just wanting to get into some cinematography, this FH03 I find is a very good system, and it does have an adjustable handle. Now, the only thing I've noticed is the handle is only on this side of the fluid head. You can't reverse it, but you have the lockout over here. So if I want to lock out the panning or the tilting, and I just want to I went the wrong way. Oops. If I want to lock it out, I can lock it out there. But you don't want to have it so that you've got some friction on it, because if you do, it's going to be jittery. It's going to be like this. Okay, so that's the other thing I wanted to talk about, is some of them will have a dial here where it can offer some resistance. So you'll have a dial here so it can offer resistance. You'll have a dial here, it can offer resistance. But this one has it built in, but it's not adjustable. So you can't adjust the resistance. You can only just accept whatever it already has. But as you can see, it's pretty good. It's not that bad. It's livable. This was $62. That's what I mean. It's not a bad price, right? Something to experiment with. And I find that this particular one does the job. Now, the only thing that I don't like is some of the adjustments. So if you look at this ball head, and we're going to go back up to the ball head. So let's say you're on uneven terrain a little bit, and you want to balance things out. Now you've got to undo this ball head. Now you've got this here. You see what I mean? And then you've got to try to adjust your levels that way. And then you've also got to adjust this, because you can also move it from here too. So if you want to adjust it, if you want to have it move from here instead of here, you can do that too. But I don't recommend that. I would recommend using the one that's in this part of the head, because it's designed for smooth panning, okay? So we're going to take this down, and then I'm going to show you a little trick on how to make this head behave like a much more expensive head for a little bit more money, but not a fortune. So I've got to remove it first. We're going to remove the head. I'm going to just set it down with the whole camera and everything. And then I'm going to take off this ball head here. So we're going to remove the whole head. Okay, so the head is gone. Now it's revealing an a 3/8 inch screw, because you're going to need that. If you don't have one of those, you can get adapter screws. They sell them on Amazon. They're just 1/4 to 3/8. You can get a pack of them for like $10. I'm just going to set that aside over here. Now I'm going to take this. This is a Gearhead. Now, what's so special about this? Well, when you're zooming in on things, any little movement that you make is going to be exaggerated at the very end of that lens. So if you've ever looked through binoculars, you can give yourself a headache or you know, just any little movement and everything moves. Like the whole moon will just move out of the way with just the slightest movement. That's where this comes in handy. So I'm going to put this on, and it takes a 3/8 inch. Okay, and I'm just going to loosen this so that I can move it around. Okay, and snug that up a bit. Okay, so now what's so special about this? Well, if I turn this, as you can see, I can tilt it this way, and it's got a gauge on the back of it. And if you look over here, no, I'm going to have to move this. Hang on a second. All right. So you see these little numbers here? So these little numbers give you calibrations of what it's doing. So as you can see, I'm turning that, and then I've got this one here, and then I've got one over here. So we're going to turn this back, and we're going to mount the camera now. So I got to lower this down, but before we mount the camera, I'm going to mount the head with the camera. Now I'm going to hook this into here. Now I've got this, okay? And you're thinking, well, isn't this a little bit of overkill? And the answer is no, not really. Why? Because when you're doing video, let's say you've got a situation where you're on a sidewalk and everything is kind of like this, okay? That's not good. With this type of head, you can make very quick corrections. You can just dial it back to where you want it, so everything is in the shot. You can make minute adjustments. And then if you're panning and you're zoomed in all the way, I can take this little dial and I can dial it ever so gently and ever so slowly. You see that? I can make minute adjustments on that. And that is where these two work good. And now if you notice, I'm not tightening this one down. It's just staying put. And then I'm just slowly making my adjustments. And then if I want to lower it down just a little bit, or if I want to make just micro adjustments, I can ever slow, I have very minute micro control. So I don't have, you can go like this, but if you find that this is just too much of an exaggeration, if you're zoomed in and the slightest, you're like, oh, I lost it, oh, I lost. You want to make little tiny micro adjustments because you're zoomed in all the way, you can just go very, very slowly on the dial and just ever so effortlessly. And it's very controlled because it's a worm gear, and you have more control other than just doing that, okay? And as you can tell, if I'm back here and it bounces back a little bit, you don't want that. Now I can literally dial my camera all the way down. I can dial it 90 degrees, okay? And then now if I want to go down, it's easier. Okay, so I can kind of use that as a balance if I want to balance it off. So if I want to fix that, now I can lock this in too. So I'm locked in, and then I can lock this in. okay? And now I can ever so make tiny micro adjustments to anything that I'm zoomed in on, because as I said before, you know, it's going to be very exaggerated when you're zoomed in, and you don't have to get a $4,000 video head. You can just combine these two heads together and you can fix the problem. Now if I click the little lever, I can bring it right back up. I don't have to dial it all the way back if I don't want to. So if I have to make a fast adjustment, I can do it like this, and then I can just finish dialing it back like that. And then I can also adjust the horizon. So, you know, if you were doing what they call a Dutch shot, they call it a Dutch when it's off kilter, you can actually dial your Dutch shot and you can mark your measurements so your shot will be the same every time if that's the cinematic look you're looking for. And yeah, so I think that the combination between these two works very, very well. Now, there is a few other things that I'm going to do to my cinema rig, I guess you could say, that I'm kind of making myself. And I'm going to put those in future videos. So I've got some extra equipment coming and I can't wait to show it to you, and I think it's going to be very exciting. So this is the only video where these two items have been combined. So if you're wanting to know if there's another video like it, well, there's one on the head. So if you want to see how photographers are using the Gearhead, then by all means, it is great for photography. It's also great for when you're doing those very close-up, what do they call that? Macro photography, that's what it is. When you're like shooting bugs and things like that. So it's great for that. But I find that it's also a good companion for video. If you don't know anything about the origins of video heads, they started off as a geared head and then they transitioned into these fluid heads. So this is a combination of both, and they still use the geared heads, but the problem is not a lot of people know how to run them because they require a lot of practice. So check out some videos on geared heads and you'll see what I mean. Arri, which makes those very expensive cameras, makes a geared head that does what this kind of does, but theirs are $20,000 and they're meant for very heavy cameras. But if you're just using stuff for YouTube and things like that, and you want to have a nice head system, these two work really good together. Now, you don't have to use this particular head with this geared head. You can make any combination you want. I bought both of these with my own money, and I'm very happy with the outcome. The outcome is pretty good, and I just like the fact that I've got all of these adjustments now. And I think that my videos are going to turn out a lot better. I do have a parade coming up, the St. Patrick's Day parade. I'm going to be using this head along with this head, and I've got another surprise. I'm also going to be modifying this head. So let me just raise this up a little bit so we can get a better look at it again. And so I'm going to turn it, let me just see, let me turn this head so that you can see it a little better. So this particular head here has these knobs, and the one thing I don't like is the knobs. They don't give you a lot of leverage, I guess you could say, because if you look at other geared heads, there's one called Sunwave Photo, and it's got little cranks, and I like that idea, but that head is no good. So the head on that one only has two kinds of adjustments. This one has three, that one only had two, and the problem is it would get sloppy. In other words, the play happens in here and back and forth, and you don't want that because it makes your motions too jerky. So a lot of people have said it started doing that like 2 weeks after they bought it. This one has very good reliability. Is it the smoothest geared head? Maybe not the smoothest, and it only has one speed of gear movement. But that's not a big deal when you're using this with it. So when you're using straight video geared heads, and they'll say you got to practice with a laser pointer and then start writing your name, and you got to get to know how the wheels move back and forth, and that's the whole thing. This doesn't require the learning curve that does. How this one works is you just simply, and I'm just going to lower it down here. With this one, you know, you don't have to have all of that. The dials are just for minute adjustments. So I can unlock this and this, and I don't have to know how to write my name because I've got all the movements, the main movements here. But then when I want to get into a certain shot, if I'm zooming in on something, then I can just transition and just start doing the little minute adjustments over here. My hand just drops from here to here. And for me, I think it's clever. I like the idea. Tell me in the comments what you think of that idea of combining these two together so they can work together. Because this way you're not having to relearn something. But I think that it's actually a good combination. Now there is one disadvantage. I notice that when I'm coming up, I'm bumping into this part of the head, so you're going to have to make sure that some of your dials might have to be on the other side, perhaps, or maybe you'll have to pre-plan your shot. So if I'm going down on a shot, that's one thing, but if I'm going backward, I'm bumping into the back of the Gearhead system. So, but if I was on the other side of it, I wouldn't have that issue. I could go up and down, and I'll show you what I mean. So right now, I'm bumping into, I'm just going to show you real quick here. So with this orientation, because I'm doing this, I'm bumping into this, okay? However, if I go on this side and I'm using the knobs this way and that way for my adjustments, I don't have the issue. I've got full movement back and forth. So if I turn it like this, okay, but it's a little bit awkward because this is going to be my up and down and this is going to be my panning. Okay, so, and then this is going to be my left and right, so for the angle. It's not a deal breaker, you know. It's not perfect, but it is not bad, you know. And see the little bit of pushback that you get there on that spring? That's not a bad thing. You don't want your camera to drop. You just have to be aware of it. And if I wanted to eliminate that more, I would simply just turn my head more this way, and then it's not going to have, see, it's not going to be as bad because I'm balancing it. Okay, so I'm kind of created a little bit of a counterbalance system, so to speak, makeshift, I guess you could say. But as you can see, I got most of my range of motion. Okay, this knob here is in the front for the up and down, but like I said, this is for minute adjustments and this is for my major adjustments. So I've just combined the two. Okay, so anyways, that's it for this video. I'm going to be adding to this system. I'm going to be changing it. Like I said, I wanted to put some cranks on these knobs so that I can get a better idea of, maybe I can add a little bit more leverage. Maybe I can make the cranks a little smoother. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't work. Sometimes modifying things doesn't work out, but I'm going to try. I've also got another surprise on how to add some dynamics to this. This whole setup's going to go on something different too. And I think that's going to be kind of exciting too, because it's not going to cost a lot of money. That's the beautiful part about this. This geared head costs more money than the fluid head did because of the precision in it. It's all metal. It's very well built. I couldn't believe it. It's heavy. It can hold the weight of everything, no problem. I have some more exciting demonstrations on this. There's going to be some changes that I make to this. So you're going to want to subscribe to the channel so that you can see what I'm doing next. It's going to be happening within the next week or two, and I can't wait to show you. So take care, be safe at work, and I will see you at the next video.